All right, so let's just get a few things straight. Yes, I'm a Christian. Does that mean that I'm better than you? Does that make me holier than thou? Let's just go ahead and debunk this right now. Absolutely not. Now, just because I'm a Christian now doesn't mean that I've lived a sin-free life. I've had a lot of struggles in my life. I still have struggles. I'm a human. Like, we all are not perfect. So for those of you that aren't a Christian, I don't want you to watch this thinking that you're going to be judged and that you can't have a successful business if you're not a Christian. Obviously, that's not the case. There are several successful business owners that don't believe, they're not believers, that have successful businesses. All I want to say is I want to share how being a Christian has helped with my business, and I also want to bring in a very good friend of mine, Bob, who has had a very successful business for himself, and both of us are Christians. We believe, we practice our faith. It's just something that we're not afraid to share with other people, and we love that opportunity to just share, like, what God has done in our lives, what Jesus has done in our lives. And it's just something that we're very proud of, and just grateful that he continues to bless us no matter how many times that we fail him. So that's what this video is all about. And it was just a lot of fun because, like I said, Bob's been a good friend of mine. He has an amazing story, which I'm going to be able to share on a future video. And thought it would be a fun collaboration to bring him on and share 5 ways that being a Christian has helped us create successful businesses. So if you're interested, let's check it out right now. What is going on, everybody? So I am here in my buddy Bob's office. This is his work domain where all the magic happens. And this is a video collaboration that we've been talking about doing. Obviously for us, like, being a Christian has meant so much to us in our personal lives, with our family, with our friends, just the way that we live life with intentionality. But with this video, what we want to talk about is how being a Christian has helped us build better businesses.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people miss out on some really incredible ideas here in the Bible. It's this book that's thousands of years old, but so much of it is still relevant for us today. And if you look at some of the most respected businesses in the world, you'll find a common thread, and a lot of them actually operate under biblical principles, whether they even know it or not.
So what we tried to do, to the best of our ability, that this could have been 37 ways that being a Christian has helped us, but really we just want to break it down to the top 5 ways, and just incorporate some of the scripture, also personal stories, personal examples that we hope that you can just take note of and hopefully apply that to your life in the way that you're working and building your business.
And I'm sure there are tons that we are going to miss, but like Jeff said, these are going to be our top 5, like ones that just kind of stand out and stick out to us. All right, buddy, why don't you get us kicked off?
All right, so number 1 is a compassion to serve others. There are so many different examples that I want to share, and I'm going to share, but I think even just growing up, like, my grandmother always talked about the golden rule, like, treat others how you want to be treated. And so simple, yet obviously in today's world, we don't see that happening.
Yeah.
And just treating others how you want to be treated. Matthew 7:12, says, so in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. And I know when I think about a specific business example, I think we all can relate to the satellite company, the internet provider, the electrician, the service provider who's supposed to come to your house between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. and they don't show. And they don't feel the need to call you to tell you that they're not going to show. Like, how frustrating is that? And I know with me, building my financial planning practice, people want to know what's going on with their money.
Yeah.
So if a client is expecting you to call them back the next day, you call them back the next day. Yeah. Or if you don't have an answer for them yet, you call them to give them an update on what's going on. You want that update. I want that update, so I want to make sure that they got that update as well.
So if we look at a business example that we all can kind of relate to, you can look at Amazon.com and what Jeff Bezos did there. And he essentially created a business where they were focused 100% on their customers. And the approach he took was, how can I serve customers better? How can I make sure that each customer is being treated just like I would want to be treated? And so as a buyer, he added in reviews on his site, which was just kind of groundbreaking at the time. And so many businesses were probably terrified at that prospect of having reviews from customers on their site for products, but he did it anyway because it was beneficial for the customers. And if you look at their decisions over and over again, they've always been based on the customer, and clearly they've had a little bit of success, right?
Absolutely. A little bit.
Just a little bit.
So another personal example that I can speak to is we go back to Matthew 18:21, and it's the parable of the unforgiving servant. And I'll go ahead and read that. So then Peter came up and said to him, Lord, how often will my brother sin against me, and I forgive him? As many as 7 times. Jesus said to him, I do not say to you 7 times, but 77 times. How does that work in business? Well, I got a few. and I could speak to it from the client perspective, the customer perspective. I can also speak to the competition. And I just had cases where, I'll speak to the competition, where other financial advisors would speak of me in not so good terms. Like that I wasn't the best financial advisor, that I charged too much, that I didn't offer what they offered. And I could have easily played that game and started to talk bad about them and say how I'm better than them. And I had clients that I worked with that it just wasn't a good fit. And that was pretty well established over time. And they would then leave and kind of just voice their disgruntles, and just because it wasn't a good fit.
Yeah.
And once again, I could have I won't say stooped to their level, but I could have easily just went there and just let all that negative energy affect me. Mm-hmm. And instead, it was that's their belief. That's how they feel. I'm going to forgive them.
Yeah.
77 times. And instead of focusing all my negative energy on that, I'm going to refocus the positive energy on the people that want to work with me and the people that enjoy working with me, and just get all the negative bad mouthing out. Like it's not going to affect me and my business and how I live my life.
It's just not beneficial.
And so if you have a business and you're going to have that, you're going to have customers that are going to leave you negative Google reviews or negative on TripAdvisor, or you're going to have competition talk about you in a way that is probably not truthful.
Yeah.
And there's a point where you want to stick up for yourself if it's like complete blasphemy, but if it's just the little things here and there, like just move on.
So number 2 is owning your work, aka working hard. And this is a biblical principle just kind of laid down all throughout the Bible. Colossians 3:23 says that we're supposed to do our work heartily unto the Lord and not unto man. And when we live in a world where everybody's cutting corners, everybody's trying to get rich quick, everybody's trying to get everything as fast as possible. And I think what this means, or at least to me as a Christian, is when I'm working, that I am working as if God is watching. And whether anybody is watching or not, I'm working with the same diligence. I'm working heartily unto God and not unto man. And so it doesn't matter if eyeballs are on me or not, that I'm doing the same thing. And for me, I remember being in a job that I just hated, and it just was sucking the life out of me. And I really felt the Lord kind of encourage me to just keep working hard and to keep doing my job as well as I could, rather than slack off, and I had a bad boss who wasn't real great, and that wasn't an excuse to slack off and be lazy. I was supposed to, and we all are supposed to, continue working hard, even in the midst of that kind of challenge and struggle.
I know for me, I think about Proverbs 16:3, which actually is the screensaver on my phone right now. And that says that commit your work to the Lord and your plans will be established. And I can tell you that early on in my career, I wasn't working for the Lord. I was working for me and what I needed. And I'm so thankful that God still blessed me, through that, and which we could talk about grace and a whole other point. But as I've gotten older and recognized that He is first, that I need to put Him first, and I just had to put a lot of faith in that He's going to reveal to me what His plan is for me. And in this state of, for the first time, I feel like I've never had control, but I always thought that I did.
Yeah.
But now it's like I recognize like I don't have control, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Because I know that he has control.
Yeah.
So I'm making sure that I'm putting him first as much as I can. Like I'm not perfect. I'm not here to tell you I do that every single day, but more so ever in my life I am, and he keeps rewarding me, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. All right. And for number 3, in contrast to number 2, this one is all about rest. And I have found in my business that rest has been a crucial part to my growth, into idea generation, to the success of the business. And it's just an essential element that we all need to take seriously. So one thing that I do every single year is take a month-long sabbatical. And you may not be in a job or a situation where you can actually do that, but I would encourage you to take some sort of Sabbath kind of break regularly. I think taking a Sunday is a really, really good thing to kind of decompress, but being able to take a long extended period of time has given me so many ideas. So not only has it like allowed my brain to rest, but it just generates more ideas, and oftentimes better ideas. And I have found that the Lord has just kind of blessed me even in the midst of that. And so the first few times I did it, I didn't know if financially if it was going to work out, and I just kept on finding over and over again that it did. In Leviticus 25, this whole Sabbath thing is kind of laid out, and God tells the Israelites, here's the deal, I want you to farm your land for 6 years and then rest it on the 7th year. And what anybody who understands farming knows that if you plant the same thing in the same ground over and over and over again and never allow the land to rest, the nutrients are depleted in the soil, and so it won't bear as much fruit, the plants won't be as healthy, and you'll have to add a whole bunch of artificial fertilizers and things like that to kind of offset that. And God in his infinite wisdom knew this, and we, just like those plants, need a break and we need a rest to recuperate. And that's where this whole Sabbath idea is so incredibly important. And it's one of those things that I think all of us think in our brains that there's no way it's actually going to work out better if I work less. But in my experience, I've absolutely found that to be the case. And you can look at the example of Chick-fil-A, and they have chosen to be closed on Sundays, which is a day that they otherwise would be making a lot of money. It's one of the more profitable days of the week. And yet they have just continued to be incredibly successful and grow like a weed. And they're just a shining example of this idea of being serious and committing to the Sabbath and taking that rest for them and their employees, and how they've been blessed in the process.
I know an example for me, taking a rest on Sundays, on the weekends like that was fairly easy for me. But taking an off day during the week was, I felt like impossible. Bob's taking a 1 month sabbatical, and longer, as we'll soon learn. But one of the first things I did that was hard for me was I took a free day in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
And I remember I was I had so much anxiety built up because like how do I do this? And what I learned as a business owner is that it forced me to start thinking about what is going to happen if I'm not there.
Yeah.
Like what systems do I need to have in place? What staff do I need? What staff do they need to be trained on to take care of if anything that may come up? And like that was a huge deal for me, a huge milestone that I did that. And the first thing that I found out was it is possible. My business didn't burn down. I didn't go out of business. So I survived. And then that showed me that, wow, I can actually do this more and more often. Yeah. Because prior to that, when I took a vacation, I didn't take a vacation. I was still glued to my phone. I was still on my laptop, checking things, making sure clients were taken care of. Yeah. Like I didn't legitimately have like a vacation, a completely unplugged vacation. So taking this sabbatical, recognizing not just on a Sunday, but that if you can take some time off from the business and just put that on your calendar, you're forced now to figure out those systems that you need to set up to make that happen.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point about the systems, because that's one thing I noticed from taking this month off. It forces you to create systems and to delegate better, which just puts you in a better position with your business, where you are more of the owner of the business rather than one of the essential components, if you will. And so creating those systems has been incredibly valuable for me, and obviously you're seeing that benefit too. So that's just a side benefit, honestly, that comes out of it.
You don't realize how much more you are present with your family.
Oh yeah.
How much more present you can be, in his presence in those times of prayer and worship. That you're not thinking about all those little things that could happen, that will break, may break, that will cause who knows what. They're gone. I mean, not immediately, but you start recognizing that you start stressing out about it less and less and less.
Yeah.
All right, number 4 is to exude diligence. Now, diligence is one of those words that often is kind of hard to explain or define, so I'm just going to go ahead and read the definition. So diligence is having or showing care and conscientiousness in one's work or duties. So with the first point, we were talking about working hard, and just giving it your all. What we're talking about here is really caring about your work and being passionate about your work. And in Proverbs 10:4 it says, "Poor is he who works with a negligent hand, but the hand of the diligent makes rich." And I just think about it in all of the areas of my business that if I ever got bored, or you talked about, with your job, how you got to the point where, man, I know that this is not my calling. I'm going to work hard and do what I'm supposed to do, but I feel like there's something else out there for me.
Yeah.
And just recognizing, just being we talk about compassion, but just caring about your work and what you do, and just being excellent in what you put your work into.
Proverbs 21:5 says that the plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. And I know for myself, if I look back on some of the stupid business ventures that I ran after, some of them were clearly, or should have been clear to me, that they were get-rich-quick schemes, and I just didn't realize that. And I thought, I can just do this little tiny bit of work and it's going to turn into something really big. And it just never really did. But if I look at the business that I started, where I was diligent, working day in and day out, and not quitting and just sticking with it, like that's where I've seen success. And you've had the same story, right?
Yeah. There's been so many times, like early on, where there was those get-rich-quick companies, ideas that I'm going to do a little bit of work and it's going to be fruitful and I'm going to be, living the high life. But now seeing that it was the areas of business that I did devote, my time in, and was diligent, and perseverance and grit is another word that comes up. But just basically, I'm gonna focus on this, and I want this to succeed.
Yeah.
Not just for me, but just for my family, and just because I took pride in that. And took pride in really devoting my time and energy into seeing something succeed.
Yeah. All right. And number 5 is remembering God's timeline and really just kind of taking the long-term approach to things. Genesis 8:22 says that there will always be seed time and harvest. And what I take that to mean is that almost everything God does starts with something really small, and almost every great thing begins as something really, really small. And it says in the book of Zechariah, not to despise the day of small beginnings. So one of the things that has helped me as a Christian with all this in terms of business is just knowing that these small things can become big things, and not to focus on the fact that it's small right now, but to just stick with it and think long term with it. And like we were talking about with some of the other principles before, just continuing to work, continuing to be diligent, continuing to serve your customers and do all these things, but do it over and with a long-term perspective. And personally, I can remember making the first 7 cents with my business. It was an AdSense click that somebody generated on my website. And I remember being so thrilled and basically jumping up and down, running around the living room, high-fiving my wife. And the reason I was so excited is because I knew if I could make 7 cents with this, and then if I kept going from there, I could make $7. And I knew that if I just kept at this and continued to be diligent and continued to work hard, viewed it with a long-term perspective, that it could actually turn into something.
So I think one of the things that we have, that if you are a new business owner, we have perspective in the sense that in the moment, like, you don't realize how the little things all tie into the big things.
Yeah.
And now it's like we can look back 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
And it's easier from us at this point.
Easier to see, like, all the little things, like all those times that it didn't work out, and how in that moment we were just devastated. And like when you got laid off, like, oh my gosh, like this is the end of the world. But now, like that, because God had a better plan, a bigger plan for you.
Yeah.
and to be able to like look back and see like how all those little things all tied into all these bigger moments. But I'll tell you what, it's still a struggle like in this moment because you don't see all that. And you go to John 20:29 and it says, blessed who have not yet seen but believe. And we haven't seen the end. Like we see it. We see all the fruits that we have right now. But I mean, the enemy does creep in and whispers those lies of like your business is not going to make it or something's going to happen. This is not how it's always going to be. But we believe that as long as we keep putting him first, that he'll continue to deliver. Yeah. And maybe it isn't as the level that we are now, but we also recognize that we have it pretty good, and like we'll be able to live off whatever God has given us.
Yeah, he's always going to provide for us. Philippians 4:19 says that he will always provide according to his riches and glory by Christ Jesus, and that's a great promise. And so so it doesn't matter where we are exactly, but we're on our journey. And so, like you're talking about starting out, you see things a little bit differently. And when you're at the beginning of starting a business, it can be really easy to think and to believe that you're not making any progress. It's not going anywhere. And you do have to know when to quit and when to pivot. Like those are real components of this. But I find from so many people I've talked to about starting a business that one of the biggest struggles so many of them have is that they quit too early and they just check out. And if they just would have kept on going, like they really were onto something. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the same thing, right?
Absolutely, all the time. All right, we're curious, which one of these 5 ways resonated with you the most? Let us know in the comments below. And also, is there something that you feel that we missed? Obviously, there are so many different ways that being a Christian has helped us build a better business, but we know that there are more. And if you have a personal example or a personal story that you want to share in the comments below so that others can see how being a Christian has helped you build your business. All right, so if you haven't yet, be sure to like this video and share it with your friends, family. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you know what to do. Hit that bell, subscribe, and look forward to the next video. This is Jeff Rose with my buddy Bob, reminding you that it's your money, your life, and only you can make it awesome. Take care.
Okay, so for number 2, this is called
that's what it's called, own your work. All right, we're curious. Just I don't know where I'm going with that. Just more concise.